Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast. Today, I get to speak to the amazing Lorraine Murphy. She is also my mentor, and I've referred to her in pretty much every episode. So I thought it was only appropriate to get her on to unpack energy management with you. Lorraine Murphy is a pioneer entrepreneur who began her journey in 2012 from the humble setting of her spare bedroom. She founded Australia's first talent agency for social influencers, a venture that rapidly grew into a multi-million dollar business. With relentless dedication, Lorraine led her team to achieve significant milestones, winning numerous awards such as Entrepreneur of the Year and Startup of the Year. Her entrepreneurial success has brought her life-changing opportunities, including an inspiring week on Necker Island with Sir Richard Branson and the chance to speak at events across Australia. Lorraine's expertise and insights have made her a sought-after media personality with frequent features in prominent outlets like Marie Claire, Huffington Post, Sky News, The Project, Sunrise, The Today Show, Sydney Morning Herald, and ABC News. Lorraine's story is one of vision, hard work, and the ability to seize opportunities, making her a true leader in the digital and entrepreneurial space. I cannot wait for you to hear this episode today and the numerous strategies and gold nuggets that she shares with us. So welcome, Lorraine. I am so excited to have you here today.
Oh, this is fun. Thank you.
I know. It kind of feels like strange because usually you have interviewed me on your podcast and usually you're mentoring me. So I'm like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah. I need to be mindful when I interview or I get interviewed by my mentees not to like slip into mentoring mode with them. So I'll be very mindful.
Well, we're kind of talking about all the things that you've helped me with. And I think the reason I really wanted to get you on was I think my and Emily's first season, I referred to you in every single episode.
Oh, thank you.
I was like, oh, Lorraine says this and Lorraine says that. And we were like linking you in every episode. I'm like, right, we're going to have to get Lorraine on and talk all things energy because you are a bit of a guru in energy management. So I'm very excited.
It's a space I'm very, very passionate about. And as you know, all the business plans and strategies and great goals, they are worth nothing if we don't have the energy to actually see them through. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this today. I wish every woman and every man, I think women struggle a bit more with energy management than men, but I wish we all knew this.
Why do you think women struggle more than men?
I think it's a couple of different things. I think one, women wear many hats, just like men, but I feel like men are very good at compartmentalizing. Like they've got like their boxes where they've got, okay, I'm in dad box, or I'm in getting dinner ready box, or I'm in work box, or my husband has motorbike box and jiu-jitsu box and gym box and his endless different hobbies. So I think they're quite good at compartmentalizing. Whereas I know from me this morning as we're recording this, I were in the afternoon, but this morning when I was working, I was thinking I'm going out to a meeting. I'm in the city till 6 o'clock this evening, waits on dinner. And I was kind of just thinking about the different ingredients that I wanted to prep for him just to help him, because our nanny makes a dinner every Friday afternoon. Yeah. And I stole the easy dinner last night because I was tired. Crap, I need to like replace the easy dinner and help him this evening. But it's that, and this, Liz, as well, that experience, like everything is always online all of the time. So even if we're working, we're thinking about kids. If we're with our kids, we're thinking about our exercise we need to do the next day. Like it's all, so I think women tend to drain their batteries a lot quicker as a result. And I think also, another factor I think for women is that we tend to people please. Like we are very much conditioned as little girls to keep everyone happy. And I know this is something most of the women I work with, like you, are women in business, and they have, this people pleasing mentality where they need to keep everyone else happy, but that can often be at the expense of themselves. So I think there's a couple of different layers to this, and I'm glad we're talking about it today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think firstly, if you can just give us a little bit of an overview of you and what you do and what has got you to this point. I feel like it's kind of like quite niche, isn't it? Like
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because, I'll tell you my background so for everyone listening's benefit. So I'm obviously Irish, so people may have noticed I've got a slight accent. I haven't lost my accent yet. So I've been in Australia for almost 15 years. Oh no, sorry, it's been 15 years. It was 15 years in February. And my background was public relations, communications, communication strategy. So I worked in that space for 3 years when I arrived in Australia, and really, really loved that space. And I started to get quite interested in the blogging space, as we called it back then, before we started talking about influencers. And I was very, very passionate about the space. I traveled to the UK, I traveled to the US at different conferences. And the business I ended up starting was a first to market business, and it was a talent agency for social influencers. So I represented initially 5 talent. We went up to 20, I think 25 was our biggest over the years.
Yeah.
And we represented these influencers. So I built that very successfully, thankfully, for 5.5 years. And then I sold that business to pursue what I call my soul on fire work. So it's speaking, mentoring, writing. And initially, so I published 4 books. What I was kind of known for was organization, because my second book was called Get Remarkably Organized.
My
And if
favorite
anyone,
book ever.
no, so
Love
many
it.
people say that's their
Yeah.
fave. It's yeah,
Yeah.
it's I almost kind of want to revisit it. It's special. If anyone, obviously it's you can buy it in bookstores and online, but it's pretty cool. If you're a Spotify member, you can listen to the book for free in
Oh,
the audiobook
cool.
section, and Step Into You as well. My 4th book is on there as well.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
was very much known in this business. I've been running this second business for 6 years. It was very much around like organization, getting shit done, productivity, all the things, and obviously business alongside that. And what I've realized, when I think back to the Lorraine who wrote Get Remarkably Organized, it was that GSD, that get shit done
Yeah.
mentality, which I still absolutely subscribe to. However, I feel there's another side to it as well, which is around the filling up your tank I talk about. I don't think it's possible for us to be productive 24/7. And the kind of the other side, I guess maybe the softer side of my work, is coming through in the conversation around energy management, the importance of retreats, the importance of really making sure that you're good in order for everything else in your life to be good, whether that's business, family, partner, friends, health, all the things. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's me in a very quick snapshot.
Yeah, you're so amazing at what you do. I have obviously been working with you for many years,
Thank you.
and I took a little snippet of time to practice it on my own, but I've found myself just gravitating back there because I feel like you got me to a certain point, and then I practiced that, and then I was ready to kind of go to the next point, and I needed that next level of self-care to get myself to that to this next
Mm.
point, which is what we're currently working on.
And it's so fun working with you this time around, because there's so many of I want to call them basics, but that kind of core philosophy that I've talked to you about for so long, like you're nailing that. And now we get to go even higher. Like it's so
Yeah.
cool. I'm loving
No,
it.
it's so cool. It's amazing. And so what got you to like landing on energy management? Did you find that you were doing like the mentoring and it was just you saw it across the board and that was interesting to you? Or how did you get to that specific sort of area?
I was probably working on it quite unconsciously for a few years, as in obviously supporting mentees through that, but without putting the
Mm.
language around it, like energy management. And then it actually was more of a personal experience. So we had our little boy Wilder, he's now 3, and I took 4 months out of the business I called it to go into babyland. And I was coming back into the business post babyland. So Wilder was 4 months old. I'd planned this, as you know, I work in like quarterly plans, 90-day
Yeah.
plans. I was planning my 90-day plan that I would execute immediately once I came back into the business. And it was an amazing plan, and I was super excited. And then I had a bit of a reality check, and Wilder was asleep just next to me in the living room. I was doing this on the dining table. He was sleeping in the living room having his nap. And I just went, Lorraine, you've got a 4-month-old baby. You've got a 4-year-old girl. We were still just coming out of that second lockdown in Australia and Sydney. And I just said, okay, cool. Like, this plan is great, but if you want to do this, you're going to need some kind of an energy management plan as well. And that was
Yeah.
very much like an internal kind of conversation with myself. And Wilder thankfully had an extra long sleep. So I planned out, and you've seen this, Liz, my energy management plan. So it's like a pyramid structure. It steps you through all these different elements of your life and business. Actually, if you want me to share that with listeners as well, I can give you a link to pop in the
Yes.
show notes if they want that. It's like a whole
Yeah.
toolkit. So kind of prompts them through the plan as well.
Yeah.
So I designed that. I just did it in my A3 sketchpad at my dining table, and I stuck it on the fridge because I figured that's where I would be going most in the house with a 4-month old baby. And I really ran with that, and I realized, God, this is absolutely game changing. And why haven't I thought about this before? So I think that's when I kind of started to more formally talk about energy management. And I
Yeah.
think there's 2 chapters in my 4th book, Step Into You, on specifically on this topic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a great book as well.
Thank
I
you.
love that book. Okay, cool. And so you're now working mainly with women business owners.
Yes,
Yeah.
mostly female entrepreneurs. So most of the vast majority of my mentoring, if not all of it, I reckon at this point is female entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But there's other elements of my work. So for example, I host retreats in Bali in Australia, and they're open to kind of everyone. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, most of the one-on-one work that I do would be with female entrepreneurs.
Yeah, amazing. So a lot of our listeners are going to be health professionals. They do tend to be women, and they tend to be mothers, and they're working with kids. What we see is burnout is such a big
Mm,
topic. I've obviously experienced it myself firsthand, and it's something that the health sector is just riddled with. We're one of the highest,
yes.
you know, industries to be hit with burnout. And now I'm seeing the
Mm,
new grads coming through, and they're actually like quite anxious around getting burnt out. So they're not
yeah.
wanting to kind of go that extra mile because they're like, oh, I don't want to burn out, don't want to burn out. So what are you seeing like with the women that you're working with? What are you seeing as like the common sort of challenges around energy management or burnout, and how we're getting there?
Mm. Well, first of all, I just want to say I spoke at a conference. I think there, a lot of the people there knew you. They were mentioning you, and
Yes.
and it was a group of 55, mostly physios, exercise physiologists, integrated GPs, and I had this conversation with them as well. And yeah, energy management is a huge factor in their industry, and I think also particularly for the and most of your listeners, Liz, are they business owners as well?
Some of them are. They're either that we've got a mix of like new grads that are like entering the industry, that are working for other people. But I find that quite a lot of the people that are interacting with us are the ones that are either on their way to building a business or have that
Mm.
interest in doing it. I guess maybe that's because that's what Em and I do.
Yeah, interesting. So I think the, I mean, the key thing that I have seen, because I've obviously have worked with you for many years, I work with speech pathologists, psychologists, physios. Yeah, there's a number of different kind of allied
Mm,
health businesses that I've worked with, and I think there's multiple challenges. I mean, the first is that for many, and I just had this conversation with one of my mentees. She's a physio, and she doesn't actually have a caseload anymore, so she owns her practice.
mm,
She's got a clinical practice and she's got a group fitness practice, and she and I were talking about this recently, and she was saying, this is a huge challenge that I see physios, healthcare professionals having, where they're running a business, but also they've got the caseload. So it's almost like you're
yeah.
doing 2 full-time jobs
Yeah.
essentially, physically, but also mentally. Then it's hugely draining. So I think I have definitely seen this challenge in this space as well, and I think it's definitely, particularly given it's healthcare, you want to be your best self with clients to make sure you're giving them the best health, helping them get the best health outcomes as well.
Yeah.
And I think so much of it is around protecting your energy, but also, really generating and maintaining that energy that you need as well. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's just heartbreaking. The people who make the biggest difference to us are the most burnt out. It's so sad.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm obviously in the early childhood space. So it's healthcare professionals and educators are another huge
Mm,
one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the poor children.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like they're
yeah.
not getting our best because
Mm.
we're burnt out. And the burden, like the emotional burden is, fairly significant of what you're seeing sometimes as well.
Oh, I can imagine. And I was,
Yeah.
yeah, there's only so much you can do within the allotted time with the client. It's obviously the whole at home support as well.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine it's really challenging.
Yeah. So, what do you think for people that, feel like they're either anxious about burning out or they're kind of on that trajectory already? Where would you start in terms of energy management? I
I
can't
think the
remember
first
where we
thing,
started.
yeah, yeah. But there's probably a couple of things rather than kind of feeling like you need to do something about it, that kind of
Mm,
masculine push or push energy. I think something that's really, really important for women, especially to get their heads around, is the difference between their masculine energy and their feminine energy. So
mm,
it's not to say that, if you're running masculine energy, you're a man. It's more of that masculine energy. If I was to describe it, if you think about a glass of water, I've got one here in front of me. So if you think about a glass of water, the glass is the masculine energy. It's solid. It's contained. It's very structured. Whereas the feminine energy is the water in the glass. It's very fluid, it's flowing, it's very flexible. So it's not to say that one is better than the other. Like we need the masculine energy because that gives us, our thrust forward in life, our drive, our
mm.
ambition, gets shit done essentially. But we also, if we get rid of if we don't have the feminine energy in the glass, it's just like it's a bit dry and boring
Yeah.
and flat, and there's no, joy or there's no joy or fun or flexibility to
Yeah.
life. So we want
Yeah.
to have both. But a challenge that I pretty much exclusively, I see every single woman having that I mentor and I work with in my Build Darling group is that they are in their masculine too much.
Yes.
And it's not to say that you need to get rid of the masculine because, as I said, the masculine energy is what helps me get through my to-do list. It's what helps me, I've got dinner all organized and it's like 2:50 p.m. today. Like I got to the gym this morning because of my masculine energy. Like it's good. It's positive. So
Yeah.
it's not about getting rid of that masculine energy. What it's actually about is raising the feminine energy to meet the masculine. So if you are in an environment, where you're got a full caseload, and maybe you've also got kids at home yourself, you're running a household, you've got to commute, all the different things that push us more into that masculine get shit done energy.
Yeah.
It's just about finding those ways that help you access more of that feminine energy. And as I said, it's not about going and changing things overnight, but it's just starting to be aware, like day to day, moment to moment. Okay, what energy am I in right now? So
Yeah.
right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm in my masculine energy because I'm on. I got my questions that you sent me kindly in advance. I want to do a really good job. So I'm in my masculine energy.
Yeah.
But just 30 minutes ago, when I was having my lunch and I was listening to a podcast and I was eating my lunch at the table and kids are out, husband's out, like I can feel it in my body now, what it feels like. So I think the
Yeah.
first thing is just to cultivate that awareness of masculine versus feminine energy. And then find those ways to get yourself more into your feminine energy. And a really, really simple way is to be around water. So whether that's going for a
Mm.
walk near water, if you're lucky enough to live near water, if it's having a shower, if it's having a bath. For me, it's such a simple thing, but at the end of a workday, just washing my face and like splashing, doing the double
Yeah.
cleanse, the whole skincare regime, but just splashing my face with water. Like I feel it's like I'm just back in my body again. I'm back in myself again.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really great way to get into your feminine energy. And then just things like creating, I talk about this so much. If you look at your calendar, you don't want to look at your calendar and go, like, I have the sense of like constriction if I look at my calendar and it's too full. Like
Yeah.
you want to feel that sense of expansion and that there's space for all the different things.
Yeah.
So that's when the masculine energy serves the feminine energy, because when you can be structured and set up your week in a way that serves you, where you do, this Friday coming, I've got I'm interviewing my husband for the podcast, which would be so
Oh,
fun.
fun.
It'd be so good. I haven't had one for ages. And so I'm interviewing him for the podcast, and that's it. Like the rest of my
Yeah.
Friday is free. And I see that, and I just look at my calendar and I go, like that spaciousness is a very feminine energy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the difference between that spacious, passive, and when I say passive, I don't mean in a negative way. It's just more of like a not on
Yeah.
energy
Yeah. Yeah.
versus that hustle energy. It's very, very different. And when we can access that feminine energy, whether it's for an hour on a Sunday afternoon, or it's coming on one of my Bali retreats and it's 6 days, 5 nights of just total feminine energy. It's so cool to see women in that space for that long. It's really nourishing, and it just
Yeah.
gives us that tank filling to enable us to keep going with what we're doing. So I think if there's one big problem I see women having, it's too much masculine energy and
Yeah.
not being aware of it.
Yes. The awareness is the first step, isn't it?
Mm. And I
Yeah.
can imagine, for so many of your listeners, they've got a full caseload on a Tuesday, and it's just go, 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 grabbing food quickly at lunchtime, writing up their notes when they're waiting for the next client to arrive. Like it's full on,
Yeah.
like it's a
Yeah.
lot of masculine energy. So I
Yeah.
would love to challenge listeners with what are those things that would really enable you to access more of that feminine energy.
Yeah, because I think, when you're working in a clinic, your back-to-back clients generally half an hour, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. But, in a 40-hour week, they're getting 10%, if that, of admin time, which is like jam-packed of, getting it all in. And then every other hour is accounted for. And I feel like I'm thinking about my team. We're all training. We're all like running.
Mm,
There's so many of my team now training for half marathons, and
wow.
so it's kind of that really high energy sort of mode, I guess.
Mm,
And when you're doing back-to-back half an hour appointments, that's very just quick, and you've got to make sure you're on the time, on the clock kind of thing.
yeah.
So I guess it's finding snippets, because it doesn't need to be it doesn't even need to be a half an hour shower, really, does it? Like you're
No,
saying.
5 minutes. When I get
Mm,
home, if I'm home or I'm working at home, whatever I'm doing, just coming home and just saying to the kids, "Hey, Mama's just popping upstairs for 5 minutes," and just washing my face, getting into my cozy tracksuit. It's
mm,
so good. I come down the stairs a different person, and it's five
yeah,
minutes.
yeah,
I think there's something else around. I mean, there's so much we could talk about in this topic, but just having those. And I know tracksuit doesn't sound very feminine, but it's like my cozy
yeah,
resting clothes. And so I think there's something very important, particularly for women, around clothes helping us transition from energy to energy. So
yeah.
I'm in full, sounds like I'm in full masculine. I'm wearing like a tight leather skirt, high heels. Actually, I'm lying. I've got my Uggs on. I'm heading to a meeting straight after this session, after this interview, and I've got the heels ready just to slide into and the handbag by
So
the door.
good.
But it feels like this is my on clothes. Like I'm dressed up, I'm on,
Yeah.
makeup's done, hair's done, all the things. But coming home this evening, it'll be washing my face, it'll be getting into the tracksuit, the cozy socks. It's just those little transitions make a big difference.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you say that, because we work on transitions with kids, because
Mm.
neurodivergent, particularly children, can struggle with transitions from, activity to activity. That's something that we're quite familiar with.
Yeah, I love that. So,
Um,
yeah, what's the transition for you as practitioners? That's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah.
Can
And
I
I
just
think,
touch on something else as well,
yeah.
is around just particularly for your space, and similar but different, I guess, to my space that I work in. It's very important as well when we are so hands-on. It's not like, you're accountants where, I'm an accountant where, no offense to accountants, but, a lot of their work is deep work. Like they're sitting in front of Excel spreadsheets, they're working. There's more limited exposure to kind of real people.
Mhm.
Whereas I think the work that your practitioners do, the work that I do, it's quite, I mean, it's genuinely very hands-on.
Yeah.
So we're quite exposed to the energy of other people as well. And if you're dealing with, children who may be a bit distressed or a bit anxious coming into a session with, you're nothing you as practitioners, but generally,
Yes.
coming into that session, you've got maybe parents who are a bit anxious or a bit rushed. You've got parents who maybe are frustrated because the kids aren't making the progress that they hoped that they would make. I'm just kind of transplanting myself into kind of
Yeah.
a day in
They
the
want
life of one of
outcomes.
your physios. Yeah, like what's happening?
Outcomes.
We're paying
Yep.
this money, we're committing all this time. Like what's happening? Let's do this.
Yep.
So I think it's very, very important as well to protect our energy when we are working with clients. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. I'm actually going to share three with you if that's okay. So
Yep.
one that my healer actually that I bring into my retreats in Bali uses, his name is Jimmy Doyle, and he's just like the least Bali healer you would like. If you look at him, he's just the opposite of a Bali healer. He's so
All
funny. He's
right.
so good. But something he teaches my retreat guests is to put their tongue to the roof of their mouth. So if you kind of put your tongue at the roof of your mouth, and there's like a little spot where like your palate's hard and it starts to go soft, it's like a little bit ticklish.
Mm,
And that point, and I can't remember the exact science behind it, but it activates your prefrontal cortex, I think it's called. But it's
mm,
actually a very empowering acupressure point. So when you press that, it's a way of either claiming back your power or staying in your power. So
mm,
I will often find if I'm in a tricky situation with the mentee, or one of the kids is annoying me, or I'm stuck in traffic and I start to get myself I start to feel that sense of like I'm reacting to something. I
mm.
will put that there straight away. It's just a way of getting back in my power. It's a really lovely mindfulness practice to use. The second thing that I love to do as well is if I'm around, maybe a friend's having a really tough time, or there's a mentee who's having a really tough time, I will visualize like an energetic force field around me. It's almost like a golden light around me. I used to do this when I was pregnant with our daughter, our eldest. and people would tell me all the horrible birth stories, and I just
How do
didn't
they
want to be
do
open to
that?
that. I know, it's crazy. So I
That's
actually go
insane.
out of my way now to tell like my positive, empowering birth stories to anyone who's pregnant, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's so nice to hear a good news story."
Yeah, I
So
say to
I
people that
visualize,
are pregnant, I'm like, you are about to have the best week of
yes,
your
same,
entire
yeah.
life. The baby, there's nothing like the baby bubble.
Oh,
Like
it's
you're
the
just gonna have
best.
the best. Like I'm just jealous that it's you and
Yeah.
not me, like giving
Yeah,
birth.
yeah. I say that to them as well. I say I would happily give birth again tomorrow. I'd happily do
Mm,
both my births tomorrow. And they're like, really? Everyone says the
I
opposite. I
know.
actually just sent a care package to my cousin's wife is pregnant in Perth, and I sent her a care package with like a note saying that. And yeah, so
Yeah.
important to do that. So I visualize a almost like an egg. I'm in like a golden egg, and there's an energetic force field around me. And no matter what's going on for this other person, my energy is protected. And the other thing you can do as well, this is something my kinesiologist Jackie taught me, is if I am kind of on the receiving end or I'm around very negative energy, it's just saying under your breath back to sender. Like it's just sending that energy back to
Yep.
where it belongs, back to sender. I use that all the time. And what I actually start to find now is I'm in a situation which could be compromising for my energy. And I realize that I'm using one of those three tools, but I haven't even consciously done it. Does that make sense? Like I'll find
Yes.
the tongue of the roof of my mouth and go, ah, interesting. So these things
Yeah.
start to become they yeah, you require less brain power and they just start to
Yep.
become habit
Habit.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's those healthy habits, which these, all these things, like the way we think, people think habits are, getting up early and I don't know,
Yeah.
doing exercise, but it's the way that we think and look after ourselves
Yeah, habitual
are
thinking. So true. I never
yeah,
thought about it. Yeah. And
yeah,
there's something else that I like to do. I haven't got it going today, but if I'm mentoring, I have a candle burning in the room with me. Just
yeah,
that whole idea of just burning away maybe any negative energy. Probably not ideal if you're treating kids. They might be like grabbing the candles. And but something that another practitioner that I saw in Bali taught me as well is like to have a shower. Like if I do have a big mentoring day, it's like to almost like wash that
cleanse.
energy away. I think that's a really lovely one to do. And double whammy, it gets you back in your feminine energy as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I find because I work from home a lot, I need to go for a walk at the end of the
Yeah,
day
nice.
just to
Yeah.
transition because otherwise I'm
Yeah.
going from like work mode into child mum
Yeah,
kid
yeah.
mode.
I step out of my office and that's it. It's into mum mode. And that can be, I sometimes feel like I've got almost like energetic whiplash from being
Yes.
just getting off a mentoring session with someone in, Zurich. And then it's, okay, what's for dinner? It's, yeah, I think that's a really good idea, that
Yeah.
transitions piece. I love that.
Yeah. So, I mean, another thing that we've talked about over the years is boundaries. And I guess,
Mm,
you've got these habits and then you need to have kind of boundaries around that and boundaries around clients. And, that's something that we see particularly because I've obviously got another clinic that's working with older populations and, it's a really good family feel, but sometimes those
mm.
client boundaries can be blurred a little bit because we kind of adopt them as grandparents and it's
Yeah, yeah, I can
it can
imagine.
be really difficult because we want to provide this level of care, but sometimes that can be confused with removing boundaries, and I know I have
Mm.
definitely done that. Is there ways that you would suggest, creating those boundaries, or what are your kind of hacks around creating boundaries, but still providing, because you obviously provide such an amazing service to your mentees, but then you have to have your boundaries. I feel like you're really good at boundaries. So how do you
Mm.
get that balance between the two?
I think just first of all, I just want to zoom out for a second because I think when we talk about boundaries, we automatically go to the boundaries that we create with other people.
Yes.
And I think what is equally important is the boundaries that we create within ourselves. So I like to think of it
Mm,
as, there's intrinsic boundaries, which are the boundaries that I create for myself. And then there's extrinsic boundaries, with the boundaries I create with, my husband, kids, mentees, all the things.
yep.
So I think it's really important to think about the intrinsic boundaries as essentially like self-leadership. So
Yep.
my intrinsic boundaries were, okay, I woke up this morning at 5:30, so I'm going to get up and I'm going to meditate and I'm going to get to the gym. Like it's getting, I talk so much about getting your 3 MITs done first every day, your most important
Yes.
tasks.
Yep.
It's those kind of intrinsic boundaries where you talk about that habitual thinking. It's just like this just becomes a habit. This is how we
Yep.
think. So I think there's something really big in, and really, 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 it's not talked about, but I think it's impossible to set and maintain effective boundaries with other people if we're not capable of doing that for ourselves. Does
Yes.
that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Because also, how do we expect others to respect our boundaries if we don't respect our own boundaries?
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like intrinsic boundaries. It's almost like self-leadership, at its finest.
Yeah.
I feel like intrinsic boundaries are how we self-lead ourselves. So I just wanted to zoom out for a second because I think we
Yep.
can often, just kind of go straight to how do I get other people to, respect my boundaries? But I think it's important to respect ours.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to touch on that. And then when it comes to actually setting boundaries, this might be controversial, but I think the actual setting of the boundary is easy.
Yep.
Once you kind of front up and depending on what your appetite is for confrontation and having a difficult conversation, I find it quite easy because I'm in disc behavior profile. I think you and I are the same. We're both ID. Like we just want to have the conversation, get on with it, and move on.
Yep.
Kind of quite blokey in a way, just like
I
get it
know.
done, just rip the band-aid off, have the conversation, move on. So I think for a lot of people, they psych themselves up so much to actually have that conversation and say, look, I really don't like when you call me out of hours, or I don't like it when you put meetings, you pack my meetings in too tightly or whatever, my
Yep.
client consultations, whatever it might be. I
Yep.
actually think that is the easy bit because once you can get that 20 seconds of courage that we need just to have that difficult conversation, send the text, send the email, it's done. I actually think 90% of the work on boundaries comes in maintaining the boundaries
Mm.
because all people, I've got a 3-year-old, like the boundary testing, like he was like a dream 2-year-old. And it's like, holy shit, he just stored up all the terrible 2 for like the crazy 3s. Like it's
Yeah.
full on. Like testing boundaries all the time, which is very cute sometimes, but also
Wait
highly
till they're
annoying.
4.
I
I
know.
feel like it gets worse when they're 4.
I feel like Lexi's settled by the time she was 4, so I'll be interested to see how he goes. He's
I
just got
think
that
boys
real
are
like
different.
masculine energy of like, ah, like he's like a little bear.
Yeah.
Super cute. So cute. So I think we need to expect others to test our boundaries just like we would test someone else's. And I think, as I said, I think 90% of the work comes in the, hey, look, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. I had to have this conversation just this week with my operations manager. We spoke on, no, it was last week, late last week. So one of my things that I briefed her on when she joined me was that I don't start work till 9:30. So I don't start mentoring till 9:30. I don't start podcast interviews till 9:30. It just gives me that space in the morning to kind of gather
Yep.
myself, do my list,
Yep.
maybe knock over an MRT or two, and then I start work on, other people's businesses,
Yes.
mentees and podcasts. And for the last 3-4 weeks, there's been 9 a.m. meetings kind of just creeping in. And I felt really resentful over it, like really
Yeah.
see my calendar, I go, oh, like this
Yeah.
kind of internal hissy fit that I have. And this is something else that I say to people is when you're wondering where you need to put boundaries in place, it's follow the resentment. The resentment
Yeah.
will give you the clue as to where that
Yeah.
boundary needs to be either reinforced and put in place. So I finally spoke to Sam, my operations manager, and I said, look, there's a lot of 9 a.m.s creeping in. It puts me under so much pressure in the morning. I've got to cut my gym workout short, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I'll move. I've got a couple of those coming up. I'll move them back. And I was like, okay, cool. But that's what boundaries are. It's the reminding others of
Yes.
why we wanted that boundary and politely inviting them to maintain it.
Yep.
So, okay, I feel like I've just given you lots of information. I think it's important to think about the intrinsic versus extrinsic boundaries,
Yep.
where if you're irritated at someone else, 2 things. If you are irritated or frustrated by someone not respecting your boundaries, 2 things is one, where are you maybe not respecting your own boundaries? And
Mm.
secondly, where are you actually coming up against someone else's boundaries? Because I often find if I'm having an experience in my life, I have to ask myself, okay, where am I doing that to someone else? And
Yes.
it's very powerful and confronting when I answer that question. So it's like when I had my
Totally.
first business and we all worked in a big open plan office together. There was like 6 or 7 of us at a time. And I got really pissed at the team for interrupting me all the time. There's, hey, Lorraine, have you got 2 minutes? Have you got 2 minutes? And I used to get so annoyed about it. And then I realized I was the worst culprit for actually interrupting them. Because rather than me going and finding something myself, I could just ask Eddie or Ash or Emily, and
Yes.
they just get it for me very quickly. Like it was so lazy.
Yeah.
So I think that can be something worth thinking about as well.
Yeah. And I think it's really powerful when you start to look at what your behavior is and what your kind of part in things is like that. Like we say, that self-leadership, like really
Mm,
looking at yourself and what's your part in all the different things. So if there is resentment, like what's your part in it and what, where's your responsibility lie?
mm.
I just think it's proactive.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. And then just some tips on, having those conversations and creating those boundaries, just being very, very clear, like just
Mm,
crystal clear as to what it is that you want.
mm,
And also then just being very being consistent, holding that line, I think is really, really key.
mm.
With a 3-year-old, like Wilder at 3-year-old, he'll something to go, it'll be like 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. And he go, Mama, can I watch TV? And I just
Mm.
laugh. I'm like, of course you can't watch TV. Like we kind of got set TV times during the week, and
Yes.
Tuesday 7 a.m. is not one of them. And he just laughs. But if I said, yeah, sure, like you can bet your ass the next day, it would be, Mama, can I watch
Yeah.
TV at 7
Yeah.
a.m.?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not worth
That
letting it go, is
consistency.
it?
But as I said, that's 90% of the work, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess there's boundaries in terms of peers and family and kind of outlining your expectations or your needs. And then I feel like there's the client ones, which, I guess is where we started. I feel like people in the health industry, because they're helping people, really suck at communicating anything that's a little bit hard with clients. Like I
Mm.
feel like they don't like asking for money. Health
Yeah,
professionals
yeah.
suck at asking for money. They don't want to, increase or decrease the time that they're seeing someone, or, they don't want to make anything difficult. Like I think I just see it across my teams. It's like those difficult conversations, particularly with clients. It's not even difficult conversations. It's probably just not people pleasing or going,
Mm.
doing that sort of, I'm going the extra mile for the client, but at the cost of your own health, I
Yes.
guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So how can they, for those kind of more tricky conversations that they're potentially stewing on for days, what are some tips, like you said, that, clarity? And I think, one of the things that we always talk about, like in our mentoring sessions, every single time you're asking me what I want, I'm like, I just want to be really
Clarity.
clear.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure that you've said to me, everyone, like 9 times out of 10,
Mm.
the mentees want clarity. And you can really get that because you ask questions and you really get that out of me. And by the end of the session, it's like, oh yeah, I'm crystal clear now. That's so good.
So
And
good.
that is energy, in itself, like that's
Oh,
energy
so
boosting.
much. Yeah.
So, and I think that's
It's
kind of,
very draining not having that clarity, or feeling
mm,
stuck is a very, very draining energy.
yeah. So how do we get clarity? What are your kind of steps in getting clarity if they don't have you in their pocket?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the first thing is, I could actually make this very, very simple. The first thing is acknowledging where you are now. What's the
Yeah.
starting point? Where are you at right now? And
Yeah.
almost taking stock of whether it's, business, career, health. And with my one-on-one mentees, I do something called a life audit, which is where I actually ask them to focus on all the different areas, and we rate them and we discuss them. So first of all, taking stock of where you're at right now. And the second thing you want to think about then is, where do you want to be? And
Yeah.
actually this can be quite challenging because, and this is where the role of, a mentor or a coach comes in, because we can get very caught up in our own heads of, all the reasons that we shouldn't, or we can't, or it's not going to be possible to do X, Y, Z.
Mm,
So if you can release the kind of the shoulda, woulda, couldas, and say, look, hand on heart, this is where I want to be, whether it's a
mm,
career, as I said, health, relationship, whatever it might be. And then it's about, okay, well, how do I get from where I am now, from point A to point B, which is where you want to be? And
yeah.
I think I really, really want to share it and impress this on everyone. It's not about these massive Herculean leaps forward. It's not about, that's it, I'm going to jack in this job and go find another job tomorrow. It's just
Yeah.
about, what are those small steps that will gradually get you to where you are, where you want to be.
Mm,
And I can tell you, and this, you're one of these people, the most successful mentees that I mentor are the ones that show up consistently. It's not about some big burst of activity, almost like a dry July type thing of,
yeah.
I'm going to be amazing in July. And then, it's not necessarily a write off, but it's not consistent the
Yeah.
rest of the year.
Yeah.
So it's just about those small, consistent things, showing up and doing those things. And really mentoring, coaching, talking, listening to podcasts like this from, people who are already there and doing what you want to do. That is
Mm,
just invaluable. I remember Seth Godin, he's a marketing expert in the US. And I remember listening to him be interviewed by Tim Ferriss years ago. And Seth Godin said, a book is just the best deal of your life, because you're getting someone's whole life journey and knowledge for like $30. Like, that's
Yeah, I
amazing.
know. It kind of blows my mind.
How
I get so
accessible. And then you get
much out of
Spotify.
books.
Like, both my books are on, I mean, thousands
Yeah.
of books for free on Spotify. Like,
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
so much information and knowledge at our fingertips. And so I think that that would be really key. It's about, you know, skilling yourself up. And if there are areas that you're not feeling that confident in, I guarantee you there's a book for that, whatever it
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah. Books are so powerful.
Mm.
I just, yeah, I can't. I it kind of frustrates me that everyone doesn't read. And I think I know why,
Mm.
because I didn't read until I was 30. I was not a reader growing up.
Yeah.
I
I
was
can't
like, oh,
imagine that now because you're such a bookworm.
oh, I read every day. I
Mm.
love reading because I just get so much out of it. And it's
Yeah.
like a little reminder each day, like whatever I'm reading, or it's like that, it's that little cup filling, tank filling
Yeah. Yeah.
routine for me, which I
Mm.
think is important.
Yeah, and can I just add a layer to that as well? I think, I mean, there's so many elements to what you've asked me, but I think another huge element is just being around people who also, you know,
Mm,
I talk a lot about, like, we've got two types of people. We've got a fixed mindset, and we all know there's people who are like, well, this is how it is. This is what it's always going to be like. Just, you know,
yeah.
I don't want to say Groundhog Day, but, you know, things don't stretch
Mm,
and grow and expand very much. But on the other side of it, then you've got the growth mindset people like you
mm,
and I, and I would imagine all your listeners listening, if they're, you know,
mm.
proactively seeking out information like this today and on your podcast. So it's about being around other people who are similarly growth mindset orientated,
Yeah.
because you can feel like a bit of a weirdo if you're the growth mindset one in, you know, family or a friendship circle of fixed mindset people. And it's just backing yourself and doing whatever you need to do to go find those people, whether it's, you know, at a seminar or a workshop or working with a particular coach or mentor who maybe gets groups together.
Yeah.
There's so much power in being around people who get it. I'm going on a retreat myself at the end of September in Byron, and
Oh, fab.
the host just sent a list of kind of said the guest list of like who's going. There's only
Mm.
like 8 of us on this retreat, and I'm so excited to spend time with those women. Like, they just
Yeah.
exactly match the energy that I'm feeling in my business right now around.
Yeah.
It's not even, I was talking, actually I had a call with her before I talked to you today, the lady who's hosting, and she said, from what I was telling her, she said, like, it's not even a momentum that I'm feeling. She's like, there's a velocity from what you're talking about in
Yes. I
life and
love that.
business. So you want to be around other people who are doing that, you know, because otherwise
Yeah.
you just, it becomes easy to make excuses and not do the things that are going to help you get to that point B where you want to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
where you want
And
to
I
get to.
think if they're not in your life, then seek them out because they're
Mm,
out there, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
They are collecting somewhere. It's just about trying to find those people.
Yeah, amazing. So I know that my inbox is going to be full after we release this
Ah.
podcast of how people can work with you because I reference you a lot on my Instagram.
You're so
I
sweet. Thank
already
you.
get lots of inquiries on,
Yeah.
what we're doing and how they can work with you. So how best do people work with you or get involved with some of the programs? Because I know you got lots of different options for people. So
Yeah.
what's the best
So
way?
I would start probably by, yeah, checking out my website, so lorrainemurphy.com.au, and I'll send you a link to that. And I'll also send you, Liz, the link to download the energy management plan
Yes,
toolkit as well. That's a
amazing.
really nice tool. It's essentially, I step you through, it's like a little toolkit. So I'll step you through prompts to actually how to complete the energy management
Yeah.
plan. You really get the most out of it. So there's my website. There's obviously the podcast. I've got very imaginatively titled The Lorraine Murphy Show as well. And I've got retreats coming up in Bali in October and the Central Coast in November. And then I've also got my Bold Darling Mastermind. Doors will be opening for that in September. So just depending on when this goes out there, and doors will be open for that next month. So that's for, yeah, business owners who are looking to grow their businesses without sacrificing themselves in the process.
What date is that opening?
It'll
Boulder.
be opening mid-September and it closes on the 27th of September, so end of September.
Okay, fab. That should actually be really well aligned,
Yeah,
actually.
perfect. And then
Yeah.
obviously there's the books as well. So I've got 4 books, which you can read. Yeah, hard copy, Get Remarkably Organized, and Step Into our audiobooks as well.
Yeah,
As I mentioned, they're on
fab.
Spotify.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for
I could have like
so.
done podcast chats with you all day. That was really
I
fun. Great
know
questions as well.
you've
I hope
been
they really help everyone
so
listening.
generous with your information. I just think, yeah, you've really transformed my life, and I'm very
Always.
excited to be working with you again. And just, I know, yeah, I mean, it's energy boosting in itself, just because I
Mm,
know that I'm going to make such good progress without compromising
yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
So, I think that, yeah, it's very powerful. So in any way people can absorb the information that you've put out. I mean, I started as a podcast listener. Like
Yeah,
I
you
just
did.
started and I just
Yeah.
listened to every single podcast. And then I remember getting in
Committed.
touch. It was during COVID and I got in touch and AJ was
Yes, yeah.
your support. And she's like, Lorraine would love to work with you. And I was like, oh my God, she wants to work with
And
me.
I remember actually AJ messaging me because she'd had the chat with you and she said, you will love Liz. And like gave me kind of the
So good.
headlines of you, like, oh, she sounds so good.
Yeah, well, I've come a really long way because remember, I was in hospital every year before working with
Yeah.
you. Like I
Yeah.
really was on the bottom end of
Yeah.
burnout and health issues. So it's pretty
See you now.
amazing.
You're glowing.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I couldn't recommend all of your work more. And now, because I've referenced you so much, people will know what I'm talking about.
Yay. Hopefully they're getting what the fuss is about, or else they're like, oh my God, this is crazy.
No, it's amazing. You're amazing. Thank you so much for
Thank you for
sharing
having me. That was
everything.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. What an amazing chat I had with Lorraine. I hope that you had a pen and you wrote all of those strategies down so you can start implementing them today. Do not let another day go by where your energy is compromised. I speak from experience and I work with Lorraine very closely. I've got all of those links to the energy management plan and her books and her website in the show notes. So check them out. Don't forget to share and review our podcast. We would love to hear how you're enjoying it. And we'll see you next time.